Nigeria's borrowing remains at 19% to the gross domestic product and is low compared to Ghana, Brazil, South Africa, Egypt, and Angola. This was made known by the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, in a statement, while clearing the true position of reports surrounding the removal of fuel subsidy at the just concluded spring meetings in Washington, D.C. Mrs. Ahmed explained that NNPC is the sole importer of petroleum products, and what they import is the cost of business, and they deduct that cost before they remit the money to the Federation account. She said the country is faced with revenue generation shortages, and this hinders our ability to service all categories of expenditure, including salaries, allowances, capitals, and as well as debt. To discuss this now, I have an economist who's joining me live from Abuja, Aliu Audu. It's great to have you join us, Aliu Audu.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Now, I don't know what you make of this comment from the Minister of Finance saying borrowing stands at 19%. Yes, we know the threshold is 25%, but looking at 19% and 25% at the moment, where do we stand?
Oh, well, yes. The threshold is at 25%. 19% is what we are right now. And as you said, other countries are going to 25% and so on and so forth. But what we should concentrate on is what are we borrowing for? Are we borrowing? If we compare ourselves to countries like South Africa, Brazil, who have high borrowings, you also notice that their level of infrastructural development is very, very high. That means the borrowing is in correlation with infrastructural and societal development. But in Nigeria, you find out that we are borrowing at 19%, but is the money we are borrowing really used for infrastructure? Is it used for what is meant for? So that should be our concern. What is this borrowing being used for? And if we are going to increase borrowing, does it mean the next generation will come to pay our debt when we have not invested in the right infrastructure? So these are the questions we should be asking the government.
Aliu, I'm also worried about this angle of it, saying that we have a challenge of revenue generation, which indeed is true. How now do we generate revenue if we are to meet up all our commitments, talking about paying debts and salaries, expenditures, capitals, and all of that?
Okay, first of all, our tax to GDP ratio is also the lowest in the world. It's one of the lowest in the world. It's about 6%. And, more other countries have over 15% and so on and so forth. So our tax system is not well developed. If we're looking to generate revenue, then we must develop our tax system. We must stop doing armchair taxing. We have to go out there and tax businesses and try to generate this revenue for government. That is one, through taxes. Let's look at other ways. We have agriculture. We have solid minerals. We are leaving these areas untapped. Look at Zamfara. You hear of people smuggling gold worth 1.something billion, killing, fighting. This is a natural resource that belongs to the government. So the government is responsible to take over these mining activities and generate revenue from there. But that is not what is going on. We have Ajaokota Steel Rolling Complex in Kogi State, which was denied funding of 1 billion recently. These are places where the government can generate revenue. Kogi State is a hub of solid minerals, and other states in Nigeria. These areas has been ignored, and we are concentrating on oil. So I believe Nigeria is blessed with the resources, but we are having problem coordinating the resources to get the maximum benefit. We have other countries that don't have enough resources and are generating more revenue than us. So it is time that with the resources we have a lot, we should stop focusing on oil and look into solid minerals and agriculture to generate revenue, because we have the human population and we have the natural resources. If we marry these two properly, Nigeria is going to do well and do extremely well, better than most countries, I believe.
Let's see how this also affects budget deficit. We're looking at 1.85 trillion budget deficit for 2019 if, finally implemented and passed into law. Now, how do you see us funding all of this this time? In reality, monies from the non-oil sector seem not to be we're not getting what we really expect from the non-oil sector at the moment.
Yes, as I said, we have a lot of areas that are untapped, and that's why we are going into borrowing. Now, if you look at South Africa in terms of dollars has over a budget of 120 billion. That is South Africa alone. Nigeria, we're still between 35 to 40 billion, and Nigeria has a larger market than South Africa. What this tells you is that there's inefficiency in Nigeria, in our economy. So we need to tap into this inefficiency and make it efficient. We have the tourism sector that is largely underdeveloped. South Africa earns revenue. A lot of countries generate foreign revenue from tourism. Ours is largely untapped. Look at agriculture, as I said before. Look at solid minerals. We are letting bandits to go and take over our solid minerals while our leaders are sleeping in their offices. That should not be so. Gold and what have you, diamonds can fetch us a lot of resources. So we should not be if we're looking for ways to generate revenue, there are ways for us to generate revenue. We are just not tapping into it. We are not investing properly in the right places. If you look at this year's budget, we didn't allocate much to agriculture. And as I've said before, garbage in, garbage out is what you put that you expect. Other countries are doing that. If you believe so much in tourism, other countries are doing that. If you believe so much in tourism, then you invest a lot in tourism. If you believe in solid minerals, invest a lot in solid minerals. If you believe in agriculture, invest a lot in that. If you do that, then you will get the required returns and you'll be able to generate revenue from these various sectors. But right now, that is not being done. We are focusing on oil, and our development, even though progressing, is very lukewarm.
Ali, before we move forward, still dwelling on revenue generation, which is very important at this time. Lately, we heard of the VAT value-added tax, that there might be a review, and we knew that the outcry from all quarters saying that shouldn't be the way to go. How would you assess our tax system in this part of the world? There was a national tax policy that was to be reviewed when the former minister was on seat, but we've not heard anything about that lately. What would you say about our tax system in this part of the world? 6% to GDP, like you identified, is far too low.
Said our tax system is quite low, especially in this part of the world. We should not focus on only banks to get our taxes from. When you go into other countries, we have what they call property tax. We should be able to tax people buying properties. The higher you buy, the more taxes you pay. Now, you find that a lot of people go around buying properties worth billions and they're not being taxed. So that's an inefficiency right there. And we are losing revenue. So we need to develop our tax system. Currently, our tax system is underdeveloped. And it's not just going out. We should have a progressive tax system whereby we tax people that earn more, people that earn more. So these are the areas that we should be looking at in terms of developing our tax. We should look at various taxes that we are not applying and apply them so that we can generate more revenue. But currently, our tax is still at 6% to GDP, which is one of the lowest taxes in the world. In most countries, it's over 25%. And I'm sure with that, we'll be able to generate revenue, added revenue. Thank you very much.
Finally, before I let you go, another thing that the minister touched on is that there is no plan to remove subsidy at this time, like what IMF advised during the spring meetings in Washington, D.C. You are an economist and you know how those funds have been coming in and coming out, which is one way that we've also been spending too much of funds. What do you make of subsidy at this time in this country?
Well, I believe in the market system. And I believe that if we, let the market flourish, then we will not have much problem, because there will be more entrance into the industry and that will create jobs. But my worry about removing subsidy is that what is the money going to be used for? Already we are borrowing and we are not using the money properly. So if you take the subsidy away, what are you going to use this money for? Until the government has a proper, allocation, I think subsidy should remain, so that Nigerians will not be driven into suffering. Already money is very tight, money is very difficult. So if you remove subsidy, price of petrol is going to go up, price of services is going to go up, price of food is going to go up, and that's going to bring about inflation. We are not prepared for that yet. We just came out of a recession 2 years ago. So I think it could be done in the future, but not now. Thank you very much.
Aliyu Audu, thank you very much. Economist from Abuja. Thank you very much for joining us on Business Nigeria.